Hey guys, it's Jeremy again. We're gonna do another lap guide video. Um, I've got a baby in my lap, so apologies in advance if he starts fussing. Um, he was literally born a couple days ago. This is my life for the next couple weeks at least. um, we're at Long Beach. We're driving the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 GT3R. We're running the fixed setup uh, per standard in the IRPAS series. This lap was done in one of the practice sessions, so track conditions are pretty much identical to what we're going to be running come race time, give or take a couple degrees, and the condition might be a little different. But there's no smoke and mirrors, no gimmicks or anything, no witchcraft or wizardry. We were able to just kind of crank this one out. We managed to pull off a 1 minute 17.947, I think it was. It's not my best lap around here, but it's a quick lap. Anything in the 17s around Long Beach in a GT3 car is flying. Low 18s, mid 18s is still a really good lap around here. It's tough to get everything right. It's a bumpy circuit. It's incredibly technical, and it's very tight. Concrete barriers on either side of you, no runoffs really, and the walls are unforgiving. We're going to run this lap guide the same way we did the videos in the past. I'm going to run the lap at speed, and then we'll break it down and point out some key areas that you're going to want to focus on. Without further ado, let's get it. And across the line. So as you can see, we're able to do a 117.947. It's tricky around here to get the lap together. It's really easy to get a really good sector, and then pick up a little bit of wheel spin coming out of a corner, and you lose half a second. It's ridiculous. Long Beach is really a game of fine margins. Smooth but aggressive is the name of the game around here. It's kind of counterintuitive. You need to be smooth, but at the same time, you need to be aggressive and deliberate with your inputs. The straightaway is pretty straightforward. Starting off the lap, it's really critical to get a good run out of the hairpin. We'll address that more when we get to that section of the lap, but that really does set up your run down this straightaway. It's not straight by any means. Shoreline Drive is curved. I usually hook my right side tires along this red painted line and just hug the wall as close as I can. You want to give it a little bit of respect because there are sections that stick out a little further than others. So you don't want to get too close to the wall because it'll bite you. But as you can see, we just work the car down the right side of the track here. We're keeping the right side tires along that painted line. And we're looking for the 400 meter board to set up our braking. I usually lift or start my braking a little bit before then, just to give turn one the respect it deserves. The tire barrier on the outside of turn one is waiting for you if you mess up your braking, so it's usually better to brake a little earlier and give yourself a little bit of room to save it in case things go sideways. This painted section through here for the pit exit, the blue line is kind of the danger zone. I usually keep my right side tires just over the red painted line, and I try and follow that down through my braking zone here. You'll see just before the 4 we're on the brakes. Nice deliberate braking. But I keep my tires just over the red line. If you go any further over to the right, you're liable to pick up a slowdown, and it's a pretty beefy slowdown. It's like 2 seconds. And there's no way you're going to be able to bleed that off without it really hurting your lap around Long Beach. Turn 1 is really tricky. Like I said, you want to get the car slowed down and try and accelerate through turn 1 as best you can. If you slow down too late, the car is going to pick up a lot of understeer or oversteer, and either way, you're going to find yourself sliding into these tires. I'll mount a little bit of the curb, but not too much because it pushes the car wide. And you need to set up a good run into turn 2 here, just because this inside wall, or the outside wall of turn 1 becomes the inside wall of turn 2, and it meets you at the apex. So you need to kind of angle your turn 1 approach to set up the right-hander for turn 2. And that leads us on our run into the famous fountain section. I'll usually get my braking done in a straight line here before we enter the fountain as much as I can. And then as soon as we clear this little wall on the left-hand side, I'm working it over to the left further, just to kind of cheat to the left and give myself a better entrance to hook it into the right to get around the fountain. You can see that we're already starting to give it some throttle here. I've got a bit of overlap, but it's mainly just trying to eyeball how my exit is going to go. And as soon as I can see the apex coming out of the fountain, I'm back on the throttle hard. And as soon as I can tell we've got good traction, we're at full throttle. This is a kind of flirt with disaster moment. I try and get as close to this left side wall as I can without absolutely ripping the mirror off of the car. But you want to drive as if you're going to hit it almost, and the car will just kind of push its way around the corner. Be careful though, it's easy to misjudge that and clip your left front corner, and damage around here is kind of critical. You don't want to pick up too much aero drag just because the little straights, you do need to maximize your speed down them, and any kind of aero drag is really going to hurt you there. Coming into turn 4, turn 4 and turn 5 are both really bumpy kind of turns. The car gets unsettled on entry and on exit, so you need to be really smooth and deliberate with your pedal application and your steering inputs. I try and miss the curb coming into 4, just because it'll push you really wide, and 4 is kind of a sweeping turn. I'll let the car run out to the outside wall here. I keep it in 3rd. I found that higher gears in the Corvette around Long Beach aren't the worst choice. I'm kind of torn still on which one is best. I found that the higher gears tend to be more predictable, although a bit slower coming out of the corners, whereas the lower gears provide that acceleration you need, but I'm more prone to wheel spin. And if you pick up wheel spin through any of these sections, you really have to let the car settle back down before you can start pushing again. The wheel spin doesn't seem to go away that quickly. You need a good straightaway for the car to kind of settle itself, and there aren't really many of those around here. Coming out of 4, we keep the car over to the left-hand side of the road. Easy on the brakes, only about 50%, just to get the weight back onto the front end. And then we toss the car into the right here over this curbing. You need to be mindful of the fact that you're tossing the car up over this hill and the curbing. You can see that the road kind of slopes away down to the left. That trend continues through the exit of the corner, and as you can see, the tire barrier ends just where we need it the most. These black marks in the wall here are where most cars end up hitting, and I never understood why we just didn't get a little bit more tire there just to keep people from cheating that as bad as they do. But you can jump the curb quite a bit. Be mindful that the car is going to be unsettled as you're coming up over that curb, so you can't jump straight back onto the throttle. You got to let it land and kind of settle itself. But then you want to bleed the power back on, because it helps the car finish its rotation and avoids you sliding out to this outside wall. You see I get pretty close to it, but not as close as can be. Still got all my bits and pieces. You can see the mirror in the corner over here. And so that's my little cheat sheet. You know, it never goes away. Out of turn 5, we make our run over towards turn 6. I usually aim for the 200 meter board to set up my braking. I keep the car along the right hand side of the road here, but as you can see, the wall meets the red painted line as you approach the about 150 meter point. So you want to give the wall a little bit of room as you're approaching it. I try and straddle this red line, and then as I'm getting to the 200 meter board, I'll start to work the car back to the left just a little bit, just to avoid this kind of curved wall that meets us on the entrance to turn 6. Hard on the brakes, down to third. This is another in-between corner. I'm torn between second and third through here. The goal is to get on the throttle as early as you can. You've got an uphill turn exit here, so it's really easy to give it a lot of power and just kind of gauge how the car accepts it, how much grip you're able to get out of the rear end coming up through this like uphill section. If the back end does break loose, because it is uphill, it's a lot easier to catch it. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to catch it. It's still very easy to spin it through here, but it's a lot more forgiving than literally every other section of the track. If you're gonna get aggressive with throttle application, this is probably the best place to do it around here. You can let the car run out pretty far wide to the right because you have a decent little straight here to play with before you need to get the car worked all the way back over to the left. And once I can feel that the car is no longer kind of squirrely on me coming out of that left-hander, we work it all the way back over to the left. And then somewhere between the 200 and 300 meter board is where I'm looking to set up my braking for the right-hander onto the back straightaway. I think this is turn 8. Depending on how good of a run I get out of turn 6 is where my braking zone is for turn 8. I'm pretty sure the curved bit between 6 and 8 is turn 7, if memory serves. So this is technically our setup for turn 8, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. This right-hander leading onto the back straightaway is crucial, whatever number you want to call it. I set up my braking, usually again, between the 200 and 300 meter board. The goal is to get the car slowed down deliberately before we get to this turn-in point. Because as we're turning in, we want to start bleeding the throttle back in just to help coax that rear end around this corner. This inside wall here has a flat section in the middle. You can see a bunch of marks where people have misjudged it. Our goal is to whip the car around this final point of that flat section. I treat that as my apex. And so the throttle application is mainly to get it to rotate around that point. As soon as I can feel it rotating around that point, you see I had to open the steering a little bit. It's easy to pick up some wheel spin through here. The city streets are dusty, but you need to be smooth with your throttle application, as smooth as you can be, and be there to catch it with your steering if you need to, because this is a nice little mini straightaway and you want to be able to maximize the speed you're able to carry onto it, just because you don't get that much room to really accelerate. I'd barely get out of 5th gear here if memory serves. I keep the car in the middle of the road, but kind of working my way over to the left-hand side to set up the braking zone. Yeah, we don't even get out of 5th here. So I usually brake in between the 300 and 400 meter board. Nice, hard, deliberate braking. I go down to 3rd gear, keeping the car along the left-hand side of the road before we're turning it in. And as you turn in, you can aim to jump pretty much this whole curb. You'll see my left side tires are basically on the candy cane striping on the outside. So really aggressive angle towards that curb. You don't want to get on the throttle too hard before the front end's biting again. If you do, it'll wash out too far to the left, and it really compromises your turn in for the final section of the lap here, which is really critical setting up the hairpin. Nice and smooth on the power. I call that smooth. We work the car back over to the right-hand side of the road. And the name of the game through here is bleeding off the speed slowly but deliberately. You want to make sure that you've got good grip on the front end coming through here. You don't want the rear end to slide too much, because if you get too washy in the back end, you pick up a lot of ABS when you try and whip the car back to the right and brake for the hairpin. And so you want to try and keep it nice and planted through here. You'll see I'm back on the throttle, just coaxing it through. The game is just, or the goal is just to maintain that mid-corner velocity. We're working the tires at pretty much the maximum amount of grip that they'll give me before they break loose. And I'm just trying to keep the car at that speed and at that angle through these left-handers. I get up on this rumble strip through here. It's not ideal. I try and keep my tires normally on just the painted section of the road. The bumps unsettle the car and you pick up a lot of ABS under braking into the hairpin. But it doesn't kill my lap here. Down into first gear, you can see I've got my car pretty much pointed straight at this far left corner of the runoff area. And that gives me a nice open entry to this hairpin so that as the car floats through, I can just kind of dab on the brakes to keep the nose tucked in. And then I'm on the throttle here and we're staring at a wall. The track is 90 degrees to our right. And so it's one of these weird corners where you need to trust the fact that you can just give it a little throttle to help with rotation, but not too much to break the rear tires loose. Because once they break loose, they don't unbrake until you take your foot off the gas. It's really hard to get traction out of this hairpin. And once you lose it, it's gone. We've got a lot of steering lock on through here, about as much lock as it'll give me. But you can see we kept it pretty steady here at about 50% throttle. I'm gradually increasing it as I'm working my way out of the, sorry, that's my wife. I'm gradually increasing my throttle application on the way out of the corner. And then you can see as soon as I start to open up the steering here, we're going back towards full throttle. The goal is to get the car straightened up as much as you can, and as soon as you get it straightened up, give it as much power as it'll take without breaking the rear end loose. Carrying as much speed through that hairpin as you can, that mid-corner speed, braking as little as possible and letting the car slow itself down and rotate around the corner mechanically without the brakes is usually your best bet. It also helps you set up a nice smooth exit onto the straightaway. You can see a lot of traction control, but we're still able to get a pretty good run out of the hairpin. And then we're just working our way up through the gears. Down Shoreline Drive, it isn't very straight, but it gets the job done. And back across the line. Long Beach is one of my favorite circuits. It's by far my favorite street circuit. I'm a California boy, so I'm a little biased, but after watching cars here in real life and being able to race it in iRacing, I can definitely say that it beats the hell out of Monaco. Hopefully this video is able to find you guys some time around here. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight as to what you might be doing wrong or what you could be doing differently. We will catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.